Chaos. Just merely saying his name makes my nipples tingle. I can't get his name out of my head. Every second of every hour of every day, I think of him.
Chaos. We're here to kill chaos.
What's up, guys? It's Project, bringing you my first impressions of the Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins demo. Man, it's a mouthful. Quick summary, the combat is very fun, the choices you're going to be able to make are going to be very deep, builds and stuff like that are going to be possible, and well, the edginess, depending on your taste, is
so thick I can taste it.
It is a modern PS3 era game, that's the best interpretation I can say, performance and visually alike. However, it's got some major flaws at the moment, not just performance issues, although that's the main one, but design and mechanical flaws that is going to turn on some and turn off others. But I'll try to highlight the goods and bads for those not able to access the demo, and well, hopefully the devs hear the criticism from the community, as what they got has serious potential to be at least on the level of a Nioh game, but is currently held back by various things right now. Now, I do not know who this game is supposed to be marketed towards, cause so far it seems it is definitely not aimed at Final Fantasy fans. This game is simply a worse Nioh at the moment, with some Final Fantasy RPG and terminology aspects and an edgy story. That's about it. But let's start off with the positives since they're easier to get out the way. First off, combat is fun. It's got Nioh's combat complexity with no stance or key management system. It has sort of the same burst counter type mechanic to parry enemies' attacks from Nioh 2, but unlimited usage, which the last boss of the demo
Chaos
really forces you to learn, but still was a very fun fight after getting used to it. Kinda reminds me of Sekiro as far as the parry goes, where you're going to want to parry a lot of attacks with it, as that's going to be your main way to gain MP. You can even use the skills of some enemies with a parry and use it against them or other enemies. Enemies have Nioh's key system that once taken down to 0, will enter a down state, and if you press circle during this, you can crystallize and destroy them in one hit, so that's what you saw in the trailers. Vice versa, you also have a break limit that will stagger you if the yellow bar here is dropped to 0. The 3 classes, or jobs, the Final Fantasy term, were all diverse in play and even had advanced forms once you progress the job skill tree, which level up individually with usage. My personal favorite was Lance, the Dragoon job, although Greatsword essentially had the charge move from Monster Hunter, which was pretty cool to see. Some skills can cross-pollinate between job trees, and weapons themselves had skills that can be chained in more of a fighting game style where you press buttons and combinations to perform different moves, which is very fun and diverse as opposed to just spamming just light and heavy attacks like Souls games. Combos also led nicely into the counter state, and you can't animation cancel some things due to parry or dodge, which is cool. And well, I think that's about it as far as positives, and no, I'm not kidding here. These small mentions are the only saving grace for this game so far. Now we'll move on to sorta neutral criticisms, which will be cool to some, but ew to others. First is, it's a Team Ninja game. The game is gonna be difficult for you, even on normal, if you're not used to Sekiro or Nioh type games. Some people are gonna like the challenge, and some are just gonna rage quit against the first boss. Which again, going forward, I think they need to be transparent on who this game is marketed towards. Like Nioh, they even have a punishment system of making you lose MP after every death. So if you die too much, you could end up with just 2 bars of MP, limiting your playability as you then can't use strong attacks, which I think is unnecessary slap to majority of the players wanting to try this game, especially when it comes to the mage job that relies on MP to cast spells. Second 50-50 is items. It's got Nioh's exact loot system. While this in turn means lots of build variety, it also means lots of RNG of getting the best stats with the best rarity of gear, managing all those drops in inventory, and even further, wanting to get the best gear for your specific job, which in a way is like the grace system from Nioh already. There is an auto-equip option that puts the highest static gear on you if you just want a click of the button to equip the best gear, and there is the potential for a reforge or temper system like Nioh to get specific stats easier, which we don't know yet because it's only a demo. But yeah, this system is going to be really fun or really frustrating and convoluted. Also, for the love of God, don't bring star stats back and allow players to change job specific stats on gear to another job if they wanted. Which, speaking of, it's Final Fantasy RPG stuff on top of all of that. I felt a bit overwhelmed with all the stuff they threw at you at once, where you have to remember combos and such on top of various stats, effects, weaknesses, etc. While this will lead to a deeper game, its barrier of entry is also going to be higher if you're not used to Final Fantasy like plethora of info to keep track of. It's not simple to the gamers today. Also, its characters, dialogue, and cutscenes are very
Chaos.
2005 PS3/PS2-like era. Some will enjoy the edge and cheesiness to it, while others will just cringe hard. And well, let's be honest, the main character and cast are throwaway designs that lack the appeal of the original FF1. So don't expect anything grand from the game as far as story or plotline outside of good cheesy banner. So those are the 50-50 complaints. They'll appeal to one crowd or another and perhaps can still be improved. Now we'll move on to the final gigantic negatives and some improvements I like to see. First, the game runs atrociously bad on PS5. The demo was PS5 only, and even then, on performance mode, dropped to a single frame at a few points of my playtime. It has 60 FPS at some moments, and then 5 to 10 FPS at lots of others, particularly when fighting multiple enemies spawned and during the outside segments. On top of running insanely bad on next-gen hardware, the game legitimately looks like a PS3 game. I want to say it's even worse than Nioh 1, which released in 2017 and wasn't a looker then, but at least that ran fairly smooth in action mode from its first alpha. Here, it's just bad given the hardware. Granted, the demo is supposedly in the alpha stage, so there is chance to improve, but it's hella rough right now. Terrible bad lighting, literal pitch black darkness in some corners, there's camera issues while running that makes it stutter, and going back to graphics, it's got the PS3 era, dark, gray, brown, everywhere. There's no color whatsoever, so just aesthetically, aka not fixed by hardware improvements, it looks drab and ugly. Reminds me a lot of Code Vein, which is a waste of the Final Fantasy label, which I would expect to look more colorful and fantastical. Second negative is enemy placement and interaction. This game has Code Vein's problem where it clumps too many enemies in one corridor. Their health is too bloated for how many enemies you face at once, with one segment literally throwing like 10 dogs at you, or another with 3 spawning nests with a total of like 7 enemies at once, all with AI that attack you at once, with projectiles and stuff coming at you that you can't really keep track of or parry comfortably. Not even Nioh was this bad in most of its segments, so they really need to tone down the numbers or just give them less health. Even on normal, it was a bit rough at some points. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad if your AI partners weren't total shit. They are atrocious AI that merely prance around you and enemies and rarely attack. They offer nothing to you in terms of help, no healing, no stagger, or defending, or combo attacks with you like in FF15. They literally just get beat up and then go down, and you can't even help them like in Nioh for free. You literally have to waste one of your potions and then come back alive and then die again without doing anything. So, make the downstate recovery free, or dramatically improve the AI and make them contribute more towards the action in a more meaningful way. They feel like the Blue Phantoms from Nioh 2, which are awful. And while the melee portion of combat was fine, magic needs to be totally reworked from the ground up. The way you cast them is too convoluted for how fast-paced this game is. Where you're locked in place, you have to do a full sequence of different button presses to cast anything, and any hit can stagger you out of the animation. The wheel thing has got to go. Just make R2 swap between 2 to 3 hotbars with spells attached to it that take up the square, triangle, and maybe circle button or X button, and that's how you cast the magic, by pressing R2 and then holding or pressing square, triangle, X. Or slow down time when using the wheel to select a spell so these players have a chance to decide which spell they want to use. But the game is just too fast paced for it to be good right now, especially when you consider job switching on the fly. If you want to switch to magic for a combo, you have to literally hit fatality combos from Mortal Kombat to get the magic out, and it just doesn't flow right. And last big complaint, sort of, is animations. Tons of things are ripped straight from Nioh, which screams laziness to making this game have its own identity. It is Nioh with Code Vein's budget and world aesthetic, with some neat Final Fantasy RPG elements on top of an edgelord plotline. Overall demo impressions? About a 6 or 7 out of 10. I had fun overall, but it's just Nioh 0.5. Not even 1.5, but 0.5 right now. Maybe the bosses or other levels or builds could be neat in the end, but they got a lot of work to do in my opinion if they want this game selling more than 1 million copies. I just don't know if delaying it is going to be possible to vastly improve it by the time it may come out. Like, without serious technical changes from the ground up, this game is doomed to look ugly. So aside FPS fixes, I think releasing sooner rather than later would be the better move. Like, who's gonna want to play a worse Nioh in 2023, right? But I don't know, the combat is holding it up, but only by a thread. We'll just have to see how they can improve it. But let me know what you guys think. I would say it's a better Code Vein, but without the anime titties, which, you know, is debatable. If you agree the graphics and performance needs to be improved, hit that like button. If you have the demo, be critically critical in the survey they had. Picking very positive on everything just because you like the cheesiness to it is just gonna make them complacent. Otherwise, leave your comments down below of what you guys think of the game, or how I'm wrong about everything in the game is actually amazing. Perhaps I'm chaos after all. If you want to find out, subscribe for more Scalebound of Boundaries FFFFFXV16 Nioh Origins 1 epicness.